Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I call up Amendment 54. This amendment strikes Section 401 of the bill, which rolls back rules and oversight of some of the biggest banks in the country. I will not be requesting a vote on this amendment, but it is shocking that Congress is on the path to deregulating these institutions. Less than a decade ago, the 28 banks that are deregulated by this part of the bill sucked down more than $47 billion in taxpayer bailout money. $47 billion from our constituents' pockets. And now, Democrats are teaming up with Republicans to reverse the rules that we put in place in 2010 to make sure that these banks wouldn't need to be bailed out again. These are not community banks. Each one of them has up to $250 billion in assets. Everyone in this room has probably heard of every name on this list. SunTrust, which got nearly $5 billion in bailout money. Regions Bank, which got $3.5 billion in bailouts. BB&T, which got more than $3 billion in bailouts. Comerica, which got more than $2 billion in bailouts. Altogether, $47 billion in bailouts to the banks that you now want to deregulate because the Fed said if you let those banks fail, they will bring down the entire economy. And this bill now eases regulatory burdens on those banks. Over the last few years, we have heard testimony from experts that deregulating these banks would be dangerous. The failure of a single bank with $250 billion in assets could destabilize the financial system, and in a time of stress, it is likely to be more than one of these banks that goes down simultaneously. The downside of rolling back these rules is enormous. I hear Senator Kennedy say he's not opposed to big, he's opposed to dumb. Well, I'm opposed to dangerous. It is potentially losing out on the chance to stop another crisis before it starts. And meantime, the upside is tiny. Banks that are already highly profitable might get out from underneath some relatively small amount of compliance costs, money that is more likely to go to stock buybacks or executive compensation, not to additional loans anyway. How can we say that banks that required billions of dollars in taxpayer bailouts are not worth keeping a close eye on 10 years later? How can we possibly have forgotten the lesson of the financial crisis already? Isn't it better to be safe than sorry and cast a wider net when it comes to protecting the financial system and ensuring that our constituents don't have to bail out these banks a second time?